In 1999, the Cara family decided to move into an old Victorian house in Los Angeles. The house had been empty for several generations, and the previous owners had mysteriously disappeared. The house, though showing signs of age, was large and offered the kind of freedom and historical atmosphere the family longed for. It sat far from the city center, in a quiet area, and this allowed the Caras to escape the hustle and bustle of city life for a more peaceful existence. At first, everything seemed perfect. The family was preparing for a Halloween celebration, excited to spend the night together. However, soon after moving in, the children began to hear strange noises coming from the upper floors of the house. Creaking sounds from the floors and walls seemed to signal that something was stirring in the house. Especially in one room, next to where the previous owners had once lived, they started hearing the sound of a door creaking every night. One morning, as Claire, the mother, went to open one of the rooms, she saw a shadowy figure disappear quickly. Initially, she thought it was just a trick of the old house, but she couldn't shake the feeling of unease. That night, something even stranger happened. Michael, the father, woke up to see a light coming from the upper floor. It was past midnight. Worried, he got out of bed and made his way toward the source of the light. As he opened the door to the room, he found that there was no one there, but the room felt strangely cold. He entered further, and then, lying on the floor, he found an old letter. Upon reading it, Michael learned that the letter was written by the former owners to their missing daughter. "I will be trapped here forever. No soul in this house will ever find peace." Suddenly, a chilling presence filled the house. The walls began to creak, and the house seemed to groan with age and something darker. For the next several nights, the family heard whispers in the walls, footsteps in the halls, and felt like they were being watched. A shadow moved from room to room, but whenever they tried to look directly at it, it vanished. One day, a police officer came to investigate the house due to the ongoing disappearances of previous residents. The officer shared that the house had a dark history. Everyone who lived there before had mysteriously vanished. As Michael and Claire made plans to leave, they felt the unsettling presence of the house linger, and they knew they'd never be able to escape it completely. Every year, on Halloween, the house's lights would flicker on, and the Caras could still feel the souls of those lost, trapped within its walls. On Halloween night in 1993, Laura and David visited an antique store where they found an eerie mirror. The frame was intricately carved, and the mirror had an odd shape. Despite the antique store owner's warning that the mirror was cursed and had a dark history, Laura and David were intrigued by it. They decided to buy it and bring it back to their home. At first, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. They hung the mirror in their living room and continued their lives. But over the next few days, strange things began happening. One evening, Laura noticed something odd when she glanced into the mirror. Her reflection seemed slightly off. It looked like she was being watched by someone standing just behind her, but when she turned around, no one was there. Laura shook it off as an optical illusion, but the feeling of unease never quite left. A few days later, she noticed a dark silhouette in the mirror that was not her own. At first, it was just a shadowy figure, but over time, it began to grow clearer, and she could make out the shape of a woman with hollow eyes. Laura immediately told David about it, but he dismissed it as nothing more than a trick of the light. However, Laura couldn't shake the feeling that the figure in the mirror was watching her. That night, after a long day of Halloween preparations, Laura sat in front of the mirror again, this time staring deeply into it. To her horror, the reflection of the woman in the mirror grinned menacingly. The longer she looked, the clearer the woman's face became, pale, with hollow eyes and a wicked smile. Laura quickly turned away from the mirror, feeling an overwhelming sense of dread. David, now more concerned, examined the mirror. As he stood before it, he saw not only Laura's reflection but a growing darkness behind her. The room seemed colder, and the reflection grew more twisted, like something was trying to escape. In the days that followed, the couple began to notice disturbing changes. Every time they looked into the mirror, the reflection was different, and the figure of the woman seemed to be moving closer. Terrified, they tried to get rid of the mirror by returning it to the antique store, but the owner warned them that the curse of the mirror could never be lifted. He said that the soul of a woman who had died in a horrific accident had been trapped in the glass, and she would always find a way back to those who owned it. Over the next year, the mirror was kept hidden away, But each Halloween, Laura and David would feel a cold draft sweep through their home, and at night, the grinning woman's face would appear in the mirror again, as if she was waiting for them to let her out. Sarah decided to move into an old house on Halloween night in 1995. The house was large and ancient, with an eerie atmosphere that gave her both a sense of mystery and fear. The locals warned her that the house was haunted, but Sarah was determined to start anew and create her own life in this grand old home. Soon after moving in, Sarah began to feel that something wasn't quite right. The house, though beautiful, had an unsettling feeling. One afternoon, while exploring the attic, Sarah discovered a hidden chest wrapped in a dusty old blanket. Curiously, she opened it, only to find the mummified corpse of a woman inside. The body was oddly well preserved, as if it had only been dead for a few days, not decades. Sarah was horrified and called the police, but when she went back to show them, the body had vanished. That night, the house felt colder than usual. Sarah heard strange sounds coming from the attic, and when she tried to go up to investigate, the stairs creaked beneath her feet, like something or someone was following her. The temperature in the attic had dropped significantly, and Sarah could feel a presence. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the corner of the attic, watching her silently. The woman's face was pale, her eyes black, and her mouth opened into a twisted, eerie smile. Terrified, Sarah ran from the attic, but the figure followed her. It was always just out of sight, lurking in the shadows. As the days passed, Sarah began to experience vivid nightmares of the woman in the attic. She would wake up in cold sweats, feeling as though the woman was standing at the foot of her bed. One night, as Sarah slept, she woke up to find the woman's face pressed against her bedroom window, grinning at her. She screamed and ran out of the house, but the woman's voice echoed in her mind, "You will never escape me." The next morning, Sarah tried to return to the house to retrieve her belongings, but when she opened the attic door, she found the body again. But this time, the woman was no longer dead. She was alive, staring directly at Sarah with a malevolent grin. Sarah fled, never to return to that house again. And every Halloween, the locals would hear faint whispers coming from the old house. Some say the woman's spirit still lingers, waiting for the next person to cross her path.